say this, I hate teachers, I love teachers. I gotta tell you, I love it. So wow, that's why we do it. There it is. We're gonna get our panel discussion going right now. We're gonna call everybody up as we're doing this. We get Mr. Michael Gaskin with Social Initiative to walk to the stage, please. Mr. Steve Coleman, Ms. Tracey Fant, Daniel with an empowerment zone, and we're gonna have our panel moderator, Elder Thomas, also move forward courageously. Get those individuals come to the stage. Like I said, something wrong. Hey, to the stage. There it is.
Everyone doing well? I'm actually on cloud 9 after that song. I'm like, wow, that was highly, highly impressive. Thank you very much. Thank you. Right now, we're going to get into a dialogue, if that's okay with you guys, about what is going to happen when we try to get to the next level of fatherhood excellence. So we have our panel here. I'm going to ask a couple of questions, and don't hold anything back, all right? We actually have some prominent individuals on the stage. So let's begin by first introducing who you are, what you do, or what your organization does. Either one. Ladies first.
My name is Steve Coleman. I'm Director of Project Genesis and Director of College Outreach here at Piedmont Technical College. And I also own a positive-based African-American newspaper in the community now called OurPeopleToday.com.
Good to you, lady.
My name is Tracey Fant. I'm CEO of ThinkTwice.org.
A nonprofit organization based in Greenwood, South Carolina. We work with youth to basically stop bullying, stop violence, teen dating abuse, domestic violence. We do a lot of youth rallies. We formed our own movement. Doing really well. Again, it's Tracey Fant, ThinkTwice.org. I also have a radio show called Real Talk with Tracey Fant, which airs live every Sunday at 3 on WOLI 105.7 FM. And that's about it. Thank you.
I'm Michael Gaskin. I'm the Executive Director for Greenwood County First Steps. Also the President and CEO of the Social Change Initiative. With First Steps, what we do is fill gaps in early childhood education. And the Social Change Initiative, what we do is take that to another level. We handle abuse in the for the Department of Social Services. We get involved in the community with our Fatherhood Initiative and our Real Mothers of Moms. And we also have a parenting component to go with that, where we focus mostly on grandparents. Also, I have a radio show called The Michael Gaskin Show, Let's Talk, and with my colleagues, Miss Patricia with the camera, the world's greatest engineer, and the voice of reason, and of course, Mr. Tashi Allen. But you know, change really happens when you get ready to make a difference. And I can honestly say, when I started, I was considered a loudmouth black guy who did not give a bunk about nothing. If I didn't itch, I didn't scratch. And it bothered people. And I figured, how did you get in the door? So one of the ladies who I ended up partnering with, and I got to announce her because I don't think our initiative really went anywhere if it wasn't for her. Ms. Angela Pruitt, my sister in change, who opened up doors. She got me in the door. When I got in the door, I think I made the difference, or we made the difference. So that's what I do here in Greenwood.
Good deal, good deal. First, before we continue, everyone give him a hand. All right, my first question is going to be to Mr. Gaskin, since he didn't give a bump about anything before and he's been transformed. What are the challenges that today's fathers face?
Well, number one, I think the fathers' resources. I think there are some great programs in the areas, and fathers who have not had fathers involved in their lives. Let me reverse it. Any man can be a father. Any man can be a father. That's the easiest thing in life to do, is be a father. But it takes a special man to be a dad. So if you don't mind, I'm going to switch your question to dad. We really don't know how to be dads because a lot of times our dads are submissive. So where do we learn how to be dads? Through trial and error? Yes, in most cases, yes. But the thing what we really need to do is get fathers have resources for dads to go to. If I need a job, where do I go? If I need to talk with someone about how I discipline my child because I don't want to end up with the Department of Social Services screaming down my neck every 5 minutes, what do I do? We need to have resources available, programs to talk with fathers and dads, and get them to go down the right road. But more importantly, the biggest problem is transportation. You have all the great programs in the world. If nobody can get there, your program is useless.
Thank you very much, Steve.
I agree with Mike in terms of the fact that we need to continue to empower our fathers. But one of the things that I think that is absolutely critical, and I think that we miss out on a lot, and listening to some of the percentages that were touted earlier, we still have to maintain a rigorous approach to empowering those mothers who are there. The one thing that I will always say is that I don't know that there could have been a man that taught me to be any better man than my mother did. She was an extremely strong woman, still is. And, you know, and I always tell the story about how the life lessons that I learned, the times when I was getting up off the floor, it wasn't a man that knocked me down, it was her. And, you know, and she was picking me up, telling me she loved me. But those are the sorts of things that I think in our community, empowering men, but also continuing to empower those women who are there and need the support. One of the things I think that we miss out on is there are a great proportion of single mothers who aren't complaining anymore. They're just asking for the same help that we would give anyone else to be able to do their job more effectively. The other thing is with our young men, early. I'm in education because I believe in education. And I'm in education because I believe in education for African-American males and females. And anybody who knows me that's worked with me knows that I'm always on the brink of exploding this institution with some of my ideas about what we need to be doing about our young men and women that Piedmont Tech is serving or underserved. So I think those things are, when we bring them together, those two facts, based on what Mr. Gaskin was saying, is critical for our success.
Thank you very much, Steve, Tracey. From a woman's perspective.
Could you repeat the question? Because when he switched it around, I kind of got lost.
Well, the original question, if Michael Gaskin would do that, I would recommend him after this is over. Okay? What are the challenges that you feel that today's fathers are facing?
Oh, okay. Yeah, that is interesting. You know, dealing with young men, young fathers, my son, he'll be 25 years old. He's a dad himself. The struggle with basically his identity. He's still trying to find out who he is. His dad was in his life, and so was his stepdad. But there was still, you know, there was still a disconnect, I think, because he kind of wanted to be at home and in the streets with his friends who didn't have fathers. So they basically tried to lead each other. I'm trying to help him or help encourage him, you know, being his mom. And I was a single mother for a long time, raising 3 young men on my own. The challenge I saw from the beginning is even trying to apply for welfare. The system was set up basically to separate us. The dad couldn't be in the home. You know what I'm saying? So when you apply for welfare, the first thing they want to know is if the father's there. We've been displaced from the beginning. And so actually it's basically a learned behavior. My whole thing is to teach my sons to build up not only each other but their friends, because they're basically learning from each other. You know, so education, the lack of education, the lack of resources, the lack of positive role models. They don't see a lot of men in suits and ties. And so when they see that, they automatically establish in their head, oh, you know, the punk factor, he's a punk, he's weak, you know, this or that, instead of saying, this is what I want to model myself after. And so it's a lot of things that's hurting.
So you would agree that there's a lot of challenges there, right?
Yes, there are a lot of challenges.
Interestingly, I was researching on why fathers leave the home. And I watched a video. A gentleman stood up while he was being interviewed and said, the reason why I left my wife, I left my kids, because I didn't feel adequate enough to be a father. And it was better for me to leave that space open for someone else to take over rather than I fulfill that. Think about that for a moment. You left because you felt a level of inadequacy. So I'm going to ask Mr. Gaskin, what would you say to that man and men who have similar thinking?
Well, number one, I would look at that man as having a known illness. And I know that the thing that we need to really, and I'm very serious about this, in our community that I see here, a lot of the men that we're dealing with have a mental illness. And they have absolutely nowhere to go get help. So if we mess around here and look at it from this way, that this person has a mental illness, he's around other people who have mental illness, they have a child, the child is going to have mental health tendencies. Not saying that the child is mentally ill. So what I would attempt to do is attempt to talk with this father to get him to understand that his number one thing is he making bad choices. He needs to not accept the fact that he's a father. He needs to take responsibility for being a father. And responsibility don't mean run. Responsibility means stand up. Your ability to respond to your adversity. That's what responsibility is. So I think he needs to get a hardcore course in responsibility. That's my opinion.
Thank you, Tracey, being a woman, and listening to that, and I'm sure every person can have an excuse that they can choose, but yet the mothers are not running away. So what would you tell that gentleman?
Well, I mean, it's obvious if someone runs because they feel inadequate, they have an issue of self-esteem in themselves. So how do you redevelop self? You know, you actually have to go to the basis of why he feels inadequate. Does the woman present herself as being too strong? You know, has he been raised around strong women or weak people all his life? Does he want to go to another woman who he feels he can conquer? There are a lot of different reasons why he may have walked away. Saying, I just feel like I'm not adequate enough to help you here after you know, help have children, make babies. That's a sad excuse basically for a man. And like he said, he must have some type of mental issues, but there have to be issues with self-esteem and with himself.
Thank you. Well, he obviously felt adequate enough to do the dance.
Exactly.
So he should have had the accountability to stay, right?
Yeah.
Mr. Steve, please enlighten us.
You know, my response to him probably would have been relative to where we were at the time. If we were riding down the road in the car together, I'd stop and put him out. If we'd been on the golf course, I'd told him, get your club and get off the car. Because that's got to be the damnest thing I've ever heard in my life. To me, that's just a ludicrous assessment. It's just crazy. What he is a coward, in my opinion. And whether you're going to be in the home or not, if you're not going to take care of your family and be aware of your responsibility, then you're just a coward. And the man title should not be given to you at that point. It is a mental illness, Mike. The way you characterize it is, you know, because he is crazy. But in reality, what he is an individual that just refuses to accept any level of responsibility. And you have to force people to be able to accept responsibility, or put them in a situation where if they're not going to accept the level of responsibility that's relegated to them, then there's pretty much nothing you can do. And that's where the community and those individuals who want to be involved in the lives of young people, and those strong moms and those grandparents and those uncles and those other people and those other individuals in the community that want to be involved. I was telling you, as we talked the other day, what's important for me is that old school way of being raised. During the times when my father was absent, there was never an absence of men. There were uncles, there were the deacons in the church, there was the pastor, there were those men who provided strong role models. And my sons will tell you the time when I embarrassed them royally speaking at a church and brought them up to the front of the church, and at the end of my presentation I told everybody in the church, you are now aunts and uncles. And I am willingly accepting your responsibility and your willingness to help me raise these young men. I'm there, I'm in the house, but I can't watch them all the time. And you know, when you put forth the best effort you possibly can, you still need help. You need to make sure that your young people are associated with strong individuals in the community. I run this program here at Piedmont Tech. I've got 100 black males in my program. The youngest of them is 18, the oldest is 55. 52% of them have some criminal record. But they're here, and they're trying, and it behooves us as a community and as a college to help them. And when they come to me, and me and my man Lamont have sat in the office and talked on a number of occasions, and he'll tell you sometimes, some of them will come to the office, and you know, they'll make statements that are just, well, I ain't gonna be able to do it, Mr. Coleman. I can't do it because of this. And I'm not one that's really ready to accept excuses when I know you can do better. I'm more one to challenge. And that's what you need to continue to do. Those people that have those mental illnesses, you either don't challenge them or you put them out your dog.
I'm sorry, I was visualizing Steve pushing somebody out of his car with his cane, talking that foolishness, that recklessness to me, you know better than get in my car and say something like that. So I just saw this visual of him just going 55 miles per hour and some guy rolling down the street. Well, thank you. Well, I think also we need to understand that there's a lack of empowerment that takes place in our community. And one of my debates, I said, one of the reasons why most people don't feel adequate because they haven't been inspired or empowered enough at an early age, and then they actually start accepting what they can't do. So what ends up happening, although I engage in this activity, I no longer can take care of, sustain the results, the consequences of my actions. I think in our community, we need to teach young men how to be sustainable as well as adhere to the consequences of their decisions, whether they're positive or negative. Would you agree?
Absolutely.
Which brings me to this question, Ms. Tracey. Why is it important for fathers to be in a child's life? Or daddies, as Michael would say.
It's just as important as a father to be in a child's life as it is for a mother to be in a child's life. Like I said, I raised my children as a single parent before I met my husband Jeff, and the challenge was basically trying to, I guess, how can I put it? They need to see both sides of the coin. I can only show them the perspective from the female's point of view. You know, so I would call their dad and say, you know, I need you to talk to him, especially when my sons became teenagers, but not as a little boy. I need you to talk to him man to man. Because, you know, he would water things down when he would talk to him, or he would still call him his little buddy and things like that. But I was like, okay, you have to talk to him as a man now, because when I'm coming at him, he's very standoffish. You know, he's looking at me now like he's a man, I'm a female. You know, I'm his mother, but then I'm a woman trying to teach him. You know, and there's no, I mean, a woman can teach a man, like he said, his mom taught him, you know, the best of her ability. And my son would probably tell you the same thing. My son, he's 25, he'll call me with any problem now, just talk to me about anything from baby mamas to sex to violence or whatever. And I feel quite comfortable with him doing that. But sometimes my husband will even tell you, I'll say, I wish he would call you. Or I wish he would call his dad. Because even though his dad was there, he still didn't get that connection. You know what I'm saying? But then I learned that his father's father didn't have that connection with him. So it's kind of like a generational curse where even he didn't, both his parents were in the home. My ex, both his parents were in the home. But his dad, although he was there, you know, like he said, he didn't hear his dad say, I love you. His dad didn't sit, they didn't have one-on-one conversations with each other. I'm a conversationalist, so I like to talk, but he was quiet and standoffish. But when it comes to children, you have to have that open line of communication. And I think it's important for men to learn to communicate. You know, even in your marriage, it's important, you know. So when you grow up and become a man, if you learn how to talk to women as your father would talk to your mother in the right manner, I think that makes a difference, you know. So it's very important, very important.
Thank you, Mr. Gaskin.
Well, why is it important for a man to be in a child's life? Well, number one, it is not a duty of that man to be in a child's life. He made the child, so it's a responsibility for that man to be in his child's life. So there's anything other than saying that I'm going to be the absolute best father or dad I can be, anything other than that is unacceptable. Because with my daughter, I love my daughter to death. Anybody that's seen me around my daughter know one thing. My daughter is completely loved without conditions or reservations. I love her to death. But despite what some people may think, I know I can't teach her how to be a woman. I've never been a woman. I can't teach her how to be a woman. That's a mother's responsibility. Now, I can teach her values. I can teach her how to take $1 and make 10. I can teach her how to open up and speak in public, but I can't teach her how to be a woman because I haven't been. But I can teach her morals, values, and all that good stuff. And I'm there to assist mom in any way possible. But the thing of it is, why is it there? My daughter learned how to love, or gonna learn how to love, or learning how to love, because she's 18 years old, from the love that I give her. That's where she learned how a man's supposed to treat her with respect and how to accept or not accept what a man dishes out from me. If I tell my daughter she ain't nothing, she no good, she ain't nothing but a whore, that's what she gonna think. So it is my responsibility. It is my duty to stand up and be there for my daughter. Now my sons. My son, I have 3 sons. One of them I'm still attempting to figure out where did we go wrong. You know, I love him to death. But every excuse in the book is mine. And I know that he talked to a person in this room because he trusts her. And she talks back with him. But you know, that's where friendship comes in. And somebody said it earlier, it takes a community. She is part of that community. They met, she talked, and I don't know what they talk about, but I trust her to talk to him, to fill the gap. I have another son, he done called me 3 times already. Hey, Dad, let me listen to what's going on. He in Texas. And I have another son, still, he's a good little boy, but he still thinks that he can make it in the streets. And I'm going to tell y'all something. I'm not a good dad. No. Hell no. I'm a great dad. My sons have just made some tough choices. But now, I'm there for them. So, a father, a dad, it's important to be there because no matter what age a child is, you always teach them. And I hope I didn't jump off again. But I know how this goes sometimes.
We're not time. Well, we appreciate you, Michael. Steve, your thoughts? Do I need to repeat the question or do you? Okay.
I was saying,
Your sheet when you write them down.
you know, there was a song that I heard years ago, and I wasn't a father at that point. Well, I was. My wife was pregnant with my oldest son when I first heard the song. It was a song by Brian McKnight, and the words that stuck with me was, "When I look at you, it's so hard to believe you are a younger version of older me." And when I look at my sons, that's what I think. And I also think, and I also know within my heart that the single greatest thing I've ever done in my life is to become their father. And everything that I am as a model to them has got to be the absolute best of me. When I make mistakes, I've got to tell them, Daddy, that was wrong. When we have discussions and I need to be tough, I have to tell them, it's my job. You may not like this, but I'm telling you from my experience and the experiences that I've been around all my life, this is not the way you want to go about this. You know, it's just, first of all, it's just such a tremendous blessing. My grandfather used to ask me and all of my cousins all the time, and I grew up in one of those typical families in Newberry where I grew up the youngest of 8 boys. I was telling Mike and some of my other friends yesterday at lunch. And people always think we were brothers, but when in actuality we were a bunch of first cousins. We all grew up around Grandma's house. Uncle Bubba was the force, and Pop was the force as well. And I remember my grandfather asking me one time, he used to ask us all the time, "You think you're a man? What does it take to be a man?" And I used to think, well, I remember one time I came out to my mother and said, "Man, I pay rent." "Oh, you're a man now. I got a job. I pay rent. I'm off to college now." But he said, "You'll know it when you know it." And then after my son was born, I was talking to Pop, and he asked me, "I guess you're grown now." And I said, "Yeah." And he said, "Do you remember why? Do you know why?" And I asked him, I said, "Would you please just give me the answer to this?" And he said, "I know you're a man now because of a conversation that we've had." And he said that manhood to him was when you knew what it is in this world that you were prepared to give your life for. And I am prepared to give my life for my boys at any moment. So that gives me license to be as nosy and as involved and as hard and as diligent as I possibly can be. And we talk every day. They hate it because I hug them and kiss them in public. Now, when they were 5 feet tall, it was okay. But now that they're 6'3" and 6'2", and they look at me right in the face, come on, Dad. But I like to do it. There's a lot of touching. There's a lot of hugging. We talk about all sorts of things. And my son now, when he drives off to Newberry to go visit his girlfriend, it's not Mama that can't go to sleep. It's me. I'm like, why can't? It shouldn't take but 45 minutes. When I have to go down 34 and meet him, he had to call me. We got all kind of little codes. I text him a 1, and all he got to do is text me 2. And see, let me go. And then you ask the other son, I'll be hot, because I'm like, okay, he's supposed to be here by now. I hit him with a 1, and I don't get a 2 back. I'm thinking, now we cut the phone off. It's a separate level of responsibility.
Well, I'm really appreciating this dialogue, and I thank you guys so far. You touched on something that was really important. We're talking about fatherhood excellence and what does it take to be a great father. So there are some fathers who are actually doing tremendous jobs, right? there's a huge populace that people are not identified as being great fathers. So with you two gentlemen on the panel right now, and I will give with you as well, Tracey, what are the characteristics of a great father?
Oh, number one, time. T-I-M-E. Everything, if you spend the time, everything else will work. Let me tell you, I've learned from being a father that, you know what, I'm going to make mistakes. The only thing I have to do is make the appropriate choices. See, I would feel forget to say how to be a father, or dad. You know, when my daughter came to me and said, Dad, you know, these girls at school are picking at me, I couldn't go into my book and say, no. I did that. You know, I had to make a decision about my life experiences and how to deal with her, but she gave me all the answers because I listened to her. And that's what we fail as parents sometimes, by not listening. We think that, and I hear it all the time, oh, back when we were growing up. You know, look, times change. When I was growing up, we had 3 channels, 4, 7, and 13. When I was growing up, if you picked up the phone, you may be hearing somebody else on the phone. When I was growing up, television went off at 11 o'clock. The thing came on and said, it's 11 o'clock. Do you know where your children are? Times have changed. Through this generation we're living in, all of a sudden, our kids who when I used to think basketball was the greatest thing that ever happened, now they think the best way to play basketball is with these phones. You know, we need to understand that we are in control of our children's lives. They, as they get older, get to add input. As long as they're living in your house, they do have input, but they do not run your house. People worry about whether or not their children get mad at them. I'll be honest with you. I have, like I said, 3 boys. They may be mad at Dad, but when it's time to eat, everybody loves Dad. We need to understand that we control our kids simply by their choices. If they like this, like what the thing called Xboxes or whatever, don't go take it away from them. You know, don't be afraid to have your child to be mad at you, because in order to love without conditions and reservations, they have to get married.
Time is of the essence too, but sacrifice. Probably the greatest lesson I've learned having, you know, a family, and particularly having 2 sons that are very, very active is, you know, my philosophy is I don't live my life for me. I live my life for them. And they're the most important things. You know, what's going to be good for them are some of the things that I use to help me make decisions. And as they become more and more active, then some of the things that I've done, I've had to become less active in. And it's just the little things. I'm an NCAA basketball official, and I used to travel the country doing that and made a lot of money doing it. But I ran into some problems with my supervisors of officials because I'd gotten to be such a highly ranked official. But all of a sudden, Brewer plays on Monday and Thursday, and Greenwood High School plays every Tuesday and Friday. So now I got to tell you, I'm going to get my schedule in October, and I'm going to block every Tuesday and Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, and Friday out for the next 3 months. And they're thinking, well, what are you doing? I'm saying, my son's at a game. And they said, well, you know how much? I said, so basically what you want me to do is put a price tag on my son's time? That's not going to happen. So I referee much less now, and I enjoy every minute of it. So it's just making those sacrifices. People have often accused me of having a very simplistic way of thinking. And they're right. I do think in very simple terms. There's complication in that simplicity, but when it comes down to doing the things that are necessary to be a father, to be a dad, to be a husband, to be an uncle, and to be a brother, all of those things come down to sacrificing and making sure that those things that are the most important things to you in your life get the time that they deserve.
Thank you for that, Steve. As we're playing time short, I'll give you the last few words to the beautiful Tracey, if you would.
Well, I agree with them. Time, sacrifice, and definitely communication. As I said, when we were raising my kids, you know, in separate houses, I tell their dad, even if you don't have the time to stop by, at least take time out to call them, you know, to check on them, see how they're doing, establish an open communication with them, So that even when you're not looking at them face to face, you talk to your kids on the phone, you hear by their tone if something's going on with them. You know, and then also, as he said, you know, take control of their household. I talked to a mother the other day. She called me and said her 15-year-old son was going crazy over an 18-year-old girl, and she was like, every time he go down to his cousin's house, I said, wait a minute, he's 15. Stop him from going down to his cousin's house. Don't let him go. Right? I don't want him to get mad. I said, who's the parent? You know, I mean, I said, you call me for advice. I can't run your household. However, I can tell you this. I told my kids, as long as you are under this roof, you're going to do what I tell you to do. And that's just it. Like he said, you can give your input, but I have the final say. And like I told her, that's what you have to establish. He's 15, but you got to treat him like he's 5 sometimes. No, you can't go. Especially if you know he's hooking up with somebody he don't need to hook up with. We're doing something he doesn't need to do. My son was 14, trying to get involved in the game. I knew what he was doing because I saw all the signs around the house. And the first time he decided he was going to go out the door to join his little friend, I stopped him at the door. And I said, I will kill you before I allow the streets to take you from you. It's all about standing in the gap. You can't depend on mentors to do it. You can't depend on everyone from the outside to do it. Because we can mentor and groom all day long, but at the end of the day, when they get home, what's going on in the household? We can try to teach them different things, but at the end of the day, it all starts at home. It all starts from whatever type of parenting ability or skill you have. Because with mothers, sometimes they come automatic, sometimes they don't though. I've talked to some women who have no idea how to raise a child, even after they get given birth and have raised them for several years. They're totally lost. So I can just imagine how lost men can be. I can just imagine that feeling. So like I said, you know, time, communication, most definitely sacrifice. You have to sacrifice for your children.
Can I add real quickly too? Just real quickly, John. See, I know one of the greatest things to have in order to be a great dad is to have a great mama too. So we got a great mama in the house. Right? Yeah, so when you got a great team, boy, it makes it so much easier.
So let's put our hands together for these great panelists. Please do not hesitate to ask these panelists any questions as the program ends, okay? All right, thank you very much.
I want to buy that new driver.